Before any Yomtov, but especially before Pesach, one of the most important things you should do for all of your kids, but especially we're talking about kids, is you say, in a very nice way, at the right time, you say, Yomtov is coming next week, in 2 weeks, whatever. Is there anything that we can do for you as parents to make this whole thing just work better for you? Is there anything we can do to accommodate you? And if you have a kid, especially, you could sit down and you could say, listen, you can give me like 10 problems that you see coming up, and I might not be able to solve all of them, but probably a lot of them I could solve. And we've had kids write lists to parents. I really don't like that we can't have chametz, 2 weeks before. I really don't like having and a lot of things we can work on. And the ones that we don't, they see that we tried, and it usually works out very well for everybody. And another thing is very important, to have the crock pots up and running with their favorite foods 24/7. It's good for everybody. It never gets old. It's always fresh. Otherwise, there's nothing to eat in this house. There's nothing to eat in this house. Never anything to eat in this house. Okay? And especially over Pesach, you have, like she said, she makes her son's favorite meals. She waits to make over Pesach. Put in good stuff in the crock pots. You could buy a bunch of little ones, and it helps them develop an appetite. It smells good. It's homemade stuff, and it smells good. And hopefully they'll fill up on that, and hopefully less on the other stuff. You do have to be prepared for all kinds of scenarios and discuss with your Rav beforehand. Most of the mistakes that people make in the name of Hashem are by being too machmir because they don't know the halacha. And you need to speak to your Rav beforehand, and you'll find out that, I didn't know. A lot of kids were hurt and pushed away from Yiddishkeit in the name of Hashem on things that they thought has to be done a certain way, but they didn't know the sugya. And just to open up our eyes and ears and minds, I'll tell one story, and once you realize that you don't know that, you'll realize how many other things that we don't know. There was a father that had a son who was off the derech, and the son went over to the father and said, Abba, Daddy, Tati, please buy me a car. I'd love to have a car. And the father said, no problem, my dear son. I'm happy to buy you a car on one condition. You don't drive it on Shabbos. Now, if you go ahead and ask all your friends, and a lot of Rabbanim even, everybody would say, you did the right thing. I mean, after all, what are you supposed to do? You're going to put a gun into his hand? He's going to drive a car on Shabbos, Machal Shabbos, B'Farhesia? You're going to go ahead and give him that to drive a car on Shabbos for Farhesia? How could you do such a thing? The father said, no deal. The kid deteriorated, the relationship deteriorated, and the kid never came back to Yiddishkeit. Rav Gershon Edelstein Shlita tells the story, and is brought down in Maaseh Ish, but he knew the story. Kishehagia el Rabbeinu, when the story reached the Chazon Ish, he was miyayetz the father. It's kedai to buy the kid the car l'loi shum tanai. Don't tell him when to drive it. Don't tell him when not to drive it. Why? He's going to use it for bad things. So he says, kedai shetiskadel hashpa'ah soyalav. In order that your hashpa'ah, your influence should grow, because that's what brings kids back, not by not participating, whatever. Now, obviously, if this is asur lahalacha, the Chazon Ish wouldn't tell him to do it. People assume that it's asur lahalacha. It's obviously not. And Rabbi Gershon said that unfortunately the father, Ober Chacham, had to be smarter than the Chazon Ish. He did not listen, and the kid never came back. We have to listen to Das Torah. So same thing with Pesach. A lot of people, we would never imagine to a regular person, and Nebuch, I feel so terrible that so many thousands of families in Klal Yisrael, so many beautiful families have to now think about having chametz in your house on Pesach. It's horrible. It's horrific. But if that's your reality, you have to speak to your Rav, because we're not going to lose our children against halacha. It's one thing if somebody's going to lose their kid because of halacha, but I have never found that halacha that causes that to happen. So you have to speak to your Rav about every single thing, and the Rav has to be a Rav that understands, and they are very understanding. One Rav explained it to parents, and he said very simple. He said, what happens if you're in college, or you're a doctor, you're a nurse, and you're sharing a room with a guy? You're going to tell him not to bring pizza into the room? You're going to have your stuff It's going to be chum. It's going to be matzah. It's going to be separate. And you don't control what your roommate does. And what if he's a Jew and he's not frum? You're going to tell him you can't put your pizza in the garbage can? No. Your stuff is your stuff. What's not stuff is not your stuff. So he said, if your kid orders, even though it's your house, he says, you're not kind with kinyan chatzar. You're not kind with your house when McDonald's, it's treif and chametz gets delivered, Rahman al-Itzlan. And the father had all kinds of questions. What do I do about if he eats in the room? What if can he eat it on the table? What should he eat it? What about the garbage? What happened to it? All kinds of questions. And the Rav answered all the questions. And it wasn't what he thought it was. And this allows, not hefkeris, this allows us to have our kids kadesh et skadel hashpa'asai alav, in order that your influence should grow. The kids who are home and comfortable at home, ad shiadei magas, as much as we can, according to halacha, we get those kids back. So we never ever do anything that could be merachik or make a kid uncomfortable, since the whole thing, they're very sensitive, and the whole thing is about they should be comfortable at home. We don't do anything without our rabbi saying, nope, we got to do it that way. You absolutely can't. And I haven't found there to be any problems with giving full accommodations, nabuch for even those that are so far away, that they won't even respect us and that they'll order stuff in. And we've had times where the doorbell rang in the middle of the Seder and his delivery, Pizza Hut or whatever, right? Delivery for Chaim. There's no Chaim here. And they realize it's Chaim. Okay, Chaim ordered Pizza Hut, Uber Eats, what do you do? So if you're not prepared for it, you freak out, you go crazy, you say, no, not in my house, eat it outside, whatever. And you have to know the halacha, and you'll be surprised. And you have to then realize that if I can't do what the halacha is, which is Ratzon Hashem, so then who's in charge of my brain? I'm doing it in the name of Hashem against Hashem. A lot of things we do just because we can't stomach it. And it's just hard for us, and it's nothing to do with Ratzon Hashem. You got to focus on Ratzon Hashem. Another very, very important thing is to drop a gift, Erev Yomtov, for every kid. The normal kids get normal gifts, something that's going to make them say, wow. You're not going to get a bad thing for them. You don't need to. But something that they're going to say, like, wow, that's amazing. And it could be very cheap. Just something that wow, we got to go into this with everybody in the best mood possible. And one of the greatest things is the inter-sibling bombs, where a lot of families are doing it. And it could be Erev Yomtov also, that everybody gets to buy for somebody else. And just be prepared. Have fun, have those crockpots running so nobody starves and goes crazy in the middle, and have a lot of fun and a lot of smiles. And remember, we do yachatz, we don't do lachatz. No pressure, no anxiety. It's very hard, very hard. Prepare in advance, make sure that the Seder is set up before Tati even comes home, everything's done, everything's ready. We got to really get this done well. Everybody's in a good mood, everybody will help. People are in a bad mood, all of a sudden the whole thing breaks down. So we need a lot of laughter and a lot of fun. The gifts really help. Beautiful cards written by mom and dad equally to every single kid, expressing your love. Expressing your love. Somehow some people can't do it, now because of the Holocaust. We got to break through our chains and get out of our slavery, our emotional slavery, and hug our kids and bench our kids and laugh with them and dance with them and have fun with them. That's what they're going to remember. That's what they're going to remember, that Shabbos is fun. Shabbos is beautiful. They can't, until they get to the point that they appreciate what Shabbos really is, they got to just, the entrance is, Shabbos is great. I had kids in Home Sweet Home told me Shabbos, they hate Shabbos so bad. It's the worst day of the week. There was always a fight, and my father always left the table in the middle, and everyone's angry, and my mother was yelling, and everything is just chaos, whatever. We have to have smooth sailing. And a lot of times it's very hard because kids don't behave like in the picture books, and the Shabbos table doesn't look like the picture books, and we're dealing with real kids and they don't always sit, and you have to know how to run it in a way that's still fun and that we don't ruin the atmosphere. And it cannot be an atmosphere. It can't be ruled by fear, and that stuff doesn't work anymore. So the gifts really, really help to get everybody in a good mood, and everybody should be in a great mood, and everything should be chilled. Hashem should help that you should have siyata d'shmaya. It's not easy.